Hey, badass business owners, what if I told you you might be priced too high? Yes, I know that sounds crazy because normally we're telling you that you're priced too low and you need to raise your prices because you just don't understand what your prices need to cover. Well, today I want to talk about the other extreme, and I'm seeing this a lot more lately. And I think it's important that we have a dialogue about it and just talk about, can you actually price too high? And the answer is yes. And it's kind of weird because I believe that when I have a conversation multiple times in a week, I'm supposed to talk about it. And I actually had this conversation several times this week. So it's going to be on the agenda for the day. And what I'm talking about is what happens is people go, I'm not making any money and I must have bad pricing and I need to raise my prices. And so what they do is they go and they raise their prices, but they raise it to a degree that actually prices them out of the market and takes part of it is sometimes it's good to raise your prices. I've actually done videos on where I tell you, don't worry about losing clients because you'll make more because you're charging more. And that works as long as you are charging a fair value for what it is that they are receiving and the quality and everything else. But here's where we're going wrong. Yes, your sales must cover, right? What's our formula? Sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals profits. Well, some of you are taking that expense piece a little too seriously. And what's happening is you have out of control expenses or you have very high expenses and you're completely passing that along to the client or the customer. And yes, to a degree, that's good, but you owe it to them for you to run a very lean, mean machine. Just because you won't address the fact that you have way too many employees, your payroll's out of control, you're spending money on stuff you don't need, that doesn't mean that the customers have to pay that price. And what's happening is when sales are going down, we often ricochet and say, oh, I got to raise my prices. And that's kind of what's happening with some people right now is they're raising those prices, but yet when we look at their payroll, their sales have gone down, but their payroll stays high. And then they turn around and they pass it on. And the hard part is you need to make a tough call. If your sales are down and it's consistently down, you need to lower your payroll. You need to let some people go. You need to make some changes because what's happening is people are raising their prices. And let me give a couple of examples, okay? So let's just say you have a customer that's been coming to you for years and you have been charging them a fair thing, right? In their mind, at least. Maybe it's $100, maybe it's $60, maybe it's $200. It doesn't really matter. But all of a sudden they come to you and next thing they know, it jumps from 200 to 300 or 60 to 120. That's a huge jump for somebody. And a couple of reasons why that might happen. One, somebody might have been priced wrong all along and the person just finally realized, hey, look, in my market, I've been charging 60, but everybody else has been charging 120. I need to get up to what everybody else is charging. That's one thing. But what's happened is sales have gone down. I've heard these examples of where sales have come down and what they've done is they're like, oh my God, I can't make my payroll. I can't cover my expenses. So they jump from say 200 to 300. Well, if you think about it, that's a huge jump you're asking people to swallow. Now, I'm not saying if the 300 is the right price or the wrong price, but it's the wrong way to go about it is because now somebody who's been using you on a regular basis is going to go, they're going to feel screwed. I'm going to be honest. I've had prices raised on me, and I'm sure you have as well. Let's put it this way. We're never going to like having prices change on us. We're never going to like when someone goes from 69 to 79 or 79 to 99. It never feels good, but we at least understand it, we accept it, and we move on. Where we start to question things, just like your clients do, is when all of a sudden something goes from 69 to 129, and we're like, you just doubled your price on me. What the heck? Now, new people coming in may not think anything about that, or they may never use you at all, especially if they can still go down the street and get it for that same 69 or even 89. But for your regulars, they're going to feel like you've just screwed them over. They're not going to understand what happened because all of a sudden it's like, wow, I've been with you all this time and you're going to double my prices on me? And I've had that happen with a couple different people this week who were telling me they're business owners themselves. And they're telling me about experiences they had where some of the people that they use on a regular basis went and raised their prices as well. Like I said, I've had it happen to me. I've had it to where it's gone from $80 to next thing you know, it's 120. And I'm like, wow, that's a huge difference. I mean, if you look percentage wise, when someone's going up 40%, 50%, 60%, you're just like, what? What just happened here? I don't understand. And what it does is it makes you really wonder, are they just raising their prices because they're not making any money? And to me, that's what I start thinking. As a coach, a business coach, I start thinking the minute someone raises their prices that dramatically, and I know they were priced okay for the most part. I mean, they may have been a little low, but they weren't like crazy low. My first thought is that they are struggling because they can't make their expenses and they can't make their payroll, and they're going to try to get the consumer who uses their product or service to pay for it. And that's usually what it is because they've either ran a long time and they should have raised their prices a long time ago and they try to do it all in one swoop. Bad thing to do. I've had another person that every time you turn around, it's gone up like $10 and it's like an accelerated. They go, oh, I'll do it slow. But what they don't realize is that every couple of months, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. And it's like, okay, well, you just kind of did this slow, like a frog boiling kind of a thing but I still, when I look back, you just raised your prices $40 on something. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to just look at your prices. I don't want you to price yourself out of the market. If your competitors are still way below you and you're way higher, all you're going to do is drive your clients and customers to those other people. You have to look internally before you go doing some crazy price change. If you are way below the market and you need to get your prices up, totally understand. Totally makes sense if you have been poorly priced all along and you need to do a big price jump, okay? That makes sense. But when your competitors are sitting there in between your old number and your new number, you have to ask yourself, are you going to be able to show the quality and the value of why they're paying so much more for you? That's the part you want to do. I mean, if I go from paying a service of $70 and all of a sudden they tell me it's moved to $120, I'm going to question if they're the right person for me, because that's a huge jump. I'm going to go do my homework. I'm going to go find out what other places are charging. And I'm going to use a pool example, okay? I had my pool done and it was like 120 or something like that. Now, every area is different, so yours might be lower, yours might be higher, okay? But I'm talking about my particular market. There were a couple of people who decided they wanted to get into the pool business and they were going to open up some businesses here locally, and they jumped to 160. And I was like, I remember when I heard and I was like, holy cow, why are they coming out so much higher than everybody else? And then I started questioning going, man, do I just have a screaming deal that everybody now is paying way more than that? They're paying $40 a week for these people to come through Arizona. We tend to get our pools looked at every week. So I'm going through this whole thing going, what the heck? Now mine is still at a good price. So I'm not having to pay that, but I'm hearing about these other businesses doing that. Well, one thing led to another. I had to change who my pull person was, right? So I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh man, I just don't think I'm going to pay $160 to have my pull done. And I'll just do it myself and I'll just, have somebody come in to help me with different things, whatever the case may be. But I happened to run into another great situation where I'm like, hey, I really like these people. I wonder what they charge. And they were at the 120. And they've been in business for a really long time and everything else. And it really made me realize that, there is a huge difference there. But by the way, the part that I haven't gotten to, the people that were charging the 160, they're not getting any business. They're not growing. They're not taking off. As a matter of fact, they're kind of getting out of that business. They came to the market so high that people were like, why would I use you? And when I can get this service done for a different price, a much lower price and everything else. Now, is the right price 120? I don't know. For me, as a consumer, I still feel it's high, but I also get that it's the going market and what things are. So you're going to look at that and say, okay, they're probably priced right. And if they went to 130, okay, I can probably swallow that, but I'm not going to swallow 120 jump to 160. I'm going to go look at my options. Hopefully this is all making sense. I know I'm kind of rattling here, but it's just something that I really want you to think about when you're looking at your pricing and how you're doing your pricing. And when you're doing your price increases, it's one thing if you have a product or service that, there was a huge jump in the market with you being able to get those supplies. And that's going to happen. and from time to time. You know what? Lumber has a huge fluctuation. And if you happen to do a job where you have lumber prices and stuff like that, yeah, those prices might be higher certain times of the year. They might be lower. I know landscaping, for example, when they do bricks, sometimes those bricks are high and sometimes those bricks are low. I get that's different. You know what? You need to adjust your prices based off of your materials. But where people are messing up is they're looking at those expenses and they're turning around and charging those expenses to the client, which, yes, they need to be included in there for your purposes when you're pricing, but that doesn't mean you can run a poor business on your expenses and pass that along to your clients. It's not the right thing to do, because you need to get your payroll under control. You need to get your costs under control. If you're renting a building or a location or an office space and you can't pay for it, you know what? You tried it. You can't pay for it. You might need to let it go, because you can't turn it into something that's making you more money. And I've had some people that have done that, where they're like, hey, I wanted to get some office space. I got some office space, but guess what? The sales didn't change. They didn't move. So their expenses, their profits are down because they're paying for this office space now, right? And it's either you suck up that you're going to have lower prices, but you have this great office space, or you have to deal with the office space, or, whether it's storage location or a building or whatever the case may be. It could be any of those things. But usually where I'm also seeing it is the other thing I've been talking about the last few weeks is people who run all their personal junk through their business, and they're like, oh, my business isn't making any money. The reality is the business is making money. You're just pulling it all out for personal, and you're not really seeing what your true business profit is. So if you think your profit is lower than what it really is, because of all that personal stuff you're running through there, you're going to be inclined to think, oh, I need to raise my prices. I'm just not making enough money. And the reality is you are making enough money. You just have really bad spending habits. So there's a lot of things that are going on in this whole picture about pricing. So all I'm saying is you need to slow down and look at why you're pricing the way you're doing. Have you priced yourself out of the market? And if you are on the higher end, are you communicating the value of why they should use you and why they should pay more? And if you're just like everybody else and you're giving them what everybody else is, you're going to have a really hard time trying to justify why your prices are so much higher than everybody else's. And by the way, like I said earlier, when you have those steady Eddie regular people and you all of a sudden give them one heck of a jump, they're going to question if they want to continue with you, and you risk losing good clients. If you're losing customers or clients that need to go anyways, that they're just price sensitive and they just want the cheapest, that's a different customer. Someone who's been using you on a regular basis, whether it's every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, whatever the case may be, if they're questioning to stay with you, no matter how much they love you, because of your pricing, you have definitely gone too far in most cases. And all I'm saying is just take a look at it. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to change it, but you need to look at your pricing strategy and make sure you are not overpricing yourself and pricing out and losing good people, good customers, because you're not controlling your expenses. Normally, it's in your expenses and your cost of goods. I mean, the products are going to cost what the products cost, but when it comes to those expenses, like I said, personal expenses being run through there, renting space or other items that you probably don't need or you can't turn into money-making situations. But a big chunk of it is payroll. I am looking at people whose sales are down and their payroll is the same or higher than it was the year before. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You might be paying more. You might be giving out bonuses. We always want to pay people. We want to pay people. We want to pay people. I love paying people what they're worth, but you cannot keep paying people money you do not have. Okay. And you can't just say, well, I'm going to go make the public pay for the fact that I want to be a generous business owner. If you want to be great, just know your profits are going to be lower because you're going to have a much higher payroll than you normally do. All of this works together, people. All of these are your different business numbers, and every single one of these things are playing into how your pricing strategy plays in to your profit. So if you're going to be spending money on stuff you don't necessarily need or payroll that you don't need at this moment, just know your profits are going to go down. That doesn't mean you are priced wrong. It means your pricing needs to be competitive, or slightly above competitive if you can back it up. Like I said, I know I'm rattling. I just know we need to have this conversation. And some of you need to hear this, and some of you need to think long and hard about, have you priced yourself out of the market? based off of what it is that you've been doing. Okay. So take a think about it. If you got some comments, go ahead and put them down below. I'll be happy to hear them. But please just make sure you're pricing correctly for the market and look at those expenses. Look at the money that you're spending that maybe you shouldn't, and definitely look at that payroll, because if your payroll is bloated and you're using the same payroll as you did the years prior and with less sales, it's not a pricing problem. It's a payroll problem, okay? It's you not taking care of your expenses. All right, I'm going to stop rattling at this moment. I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.